Okay, when you're ready.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today, inshallah ta'ala, that will replace concerning our normal study of Muqtaza Sahih Bukhari by Zubaydi, and instead that will be doing the reading from the book Ahadith, Ashara, Dhul-Hijjah, wa Ayyam Tashriq, Ahkam wal Adab by Shaykh Fawzan. And this is Shaykh Abdullah ibn Saleh ibn Abdullah ibn Fawzan ibn Ali Fawzan. So this is not the Shaykh Saleh Fawzan that is more well known, but this is another Shaykh Fawzan, and who is Shaykh Abdullah. So this is Shaykh Abdullah ibn Saleh, and he's not per se the son of Saleh Fawzan, but a complete different Fawzan. But Shaykh Hafidullah of those who have authored many books in various fields. So seeing that we're in these days of Dhul-Hijjah, as a reminder to ourselves and to our brothers and sisters that we have chosen and selected to discuss this particular book, seeing that it coincides with these days of Dhul-Hijjah. So also this book has been translated and also been given away free. So inshallah ta'ala, so as to benefit from having a copy of the book, and also by way of benefiting also by studying from the book. So studying of the book. So this is the book that have been translated into English. So the Shaykh have authored this book, but also Jazakallah khair to some of our brothers that they have worked in translating this book, and also it serves as a very useful book, saying that this Dhul-Hijjah and its ahkam is a annual occurrence. It's occur annually, so the Muslim should be aware of the ahkam that relates to the month of Dhul-Hijjah, in particular the first 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. So the Shaykh Abdullah Fawzan have authored this book as one to remind us regarding those ahkam and the virtue of Dhul-Hijjah, and how to carry that and to carry out this in the proper way. So this is concerning the title of the book, and as we mentioned, that the book is titled in English Ahadith about Dhul-Hijjah and the days of Tashriq, rulings and manners. So with this, inshallah ta'ala, for those of a copy, then they can read concerning a brief biography of the Shaykh, who have authored many books. So Shaykh Abdullah have authored many books. He's from the area of Qasim, and also he is a teacher, professor in the university over there, maybe now retired, but also the Shaykh have authored many works in various fields that he have done an explanation regarding the book in several books regarding Lugha, regarding Alfiyat ibn Malik. He have explained in several volumes. Also we have done Qatr al-Nadha also in Lugha, that also Shaykh also in other work in the area of Usul al-Fiqh, that the Shaykh have authored a book that is Al-Waraqat, so the Sharh of Waraqat by Al-Juhayni, that he has explained, and also other books in Usul al-Fiqh that he has authored, also in matters concerning Al-Aqidah, also concerning Bab of Ibadah, that he have authored or explained the book Thalathatu Usul by Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah tabarak ta'ala. And also you have discussed concerning in books in particular, then also of his more famous book that you have explained, that is the book Bulugh al-Maram. So the Shaykh also have explained the book Bulugh al-Maram by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and that's considered to be a very valuable explanation of the book Bulugh al-Maram. Also the Shaykh have explained the book Umdat al-Ahkam. So also explained the book Umdat al-Ahkam by Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, and also other books related to that particular topic. So inshallah ta'ala, tabarak ta'ala, that will try to benefit from the work of the Shaykh. Also books in adab regarding adab of talib al-ilm. So I've explained concerning books in that area and the general adab of the Muslim. So as we mentioned, and also other works that he have done regarding matters on various topics. So this is one of his works. and we try to benefit and to read concerning what relates to the month of Dhul-Hijjah, taken from the book of Shaykh Abdullah ibn Saleh al-Fawzan, Hafidullah Tabaraka Ta'ala. So I'll read a hadith and then some quick footnote, commentary on what is mentioned in the hadith. Aywa. So we're starting from page 13. So from in our book, it will be page 13.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. قال مؤلف رحمه الله حفظه الله the 29th of Dhul-Hijjah, the virtues of the 10 days and the righteous actions in them. You mean to read the hadith just in English?
Yeah, just in English.
Okay, طيب. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma narrated the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there are no days in which righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah than these 10 days. The people asked, not even jihad for the sake of Allah? He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, not even jihad for the sake of Allah, except for a man who went out with his self and his wealth and came back with none of that. Reported by Al-Bukhari, Abu Dawood, Al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah and Ahmad.
So the author, Hafidullah Tabaraka Ta'ala, that regarding concerning the virtue of these days of Dhul-Hijjah, that he mentioned this hadith that can summarize concerning the general virtue of this month of Dhul-Hijjah are the first 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. So there's many activities that occur in this month of Dhul-Hijjah, this month, so it has certain significance, and of those things is regarding concerning Al-Hajj, which is one of the arkan of Islam, and also other things that relates to Hajj and preparation for Hajj. So the preparation for Hajj is these 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. So you mentioned the hadith that capture concerning the virtue of these days, and very explicit regarding the virtue of these days. So in the hadith of Ibn Abbas as mentioned by An-Nabi alayhi salam, قال ما من أيام عمل صالح فيهن أحب إلى الله منه في هذه أيام العشر. So you mentioned regarding concerning that there's no days in which righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than these 10 days, yani the 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. And then one of those who were present of us asked, وَلَا جِيَادْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, even jihad fi sabilillah. Then he alayhi salam, he respond by saying, وَلَا جِهَادْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا رَجُلٌ, even jihad, not even jihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِلَّا رَجُلٌ, except for a person, rajul, concerning that, anyone who with this intent and with ikhlas, خَرَجَ بِنَفْسِهِ وَمَالِهِ, a person who goes out with his in person, with himself and also with his wealth, وَلَمْ يَرْجَعْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ بِشَيْءٍ, and doesn't return with anything. So it shows regarding the virtue of this month of Dhul-Hijjah, regarding concerning that of immense virtue, not compared even to jihad fi sabilillah. So it shows concerning this hadith, doing of righteous deeds in this month, that it comes with great reward from the person who are involved. Then the author went on to mention regarding the hadith of Ibn Abbas that comes with other wordings. So the hadith with other wording we mentioned, مَا مِنْ أَمَلٍ أَزْكَى إِنْدَ اللَّهِ. So other wording of the hadith mentioned, there is no deeds more precious to Allah. So it shows regarding that the importance of these days, where the importance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and more so regarding the person who busies themselves in doing of righteous deeds within these days that are mentioned. So that's concerning this matter regarding this hadith, kind of somewhat explained regarding the virtue or the tremendous virtue that one can achieve and again in these days of Dhul-Hijjah, in by sense of doing of righteous deeds. So the person to see as to what are those deeds that they're able to can accomplish in these days, and try to do of those things as much as possible regarding all into those things which is wajib, and also for a person also to exceed on those things that are voluntary acts within these days of Dhul-Hijjah. That's concerning the hadith that give us a summary regarding the virtue of this month of Dhul-Hijjah. Aywa. Then so that's concerning Dhul-Hijjah. Then he mentioned regarding the next hadith, which will be page 17.
نعم. قال مؤلف رحمه الله, the 30th of Dhul-Qa'dah. What must be avoided by the person who wants to slaughter? Salama radiallahu anha narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you see the new moon of Dhul-Hijjah and one of you desires to offer a sacrifice, then let him refrain from cutting his hair and his nails until he offers his sacrifice. In another narration, let him not touch anything from his hair or his skin.
As the author, Hafidullah, went on to discuss concerning matters regarding of those acts that are specifically mentioned regarding their virtue in the month of Dhul-Hijjah, and also acts that are said to be mashru', permissible in the month of Dhul-Hijjah. So before this, the hadith was mentioned before, the hadith of Ibn Abbas is somewhat general. It doesn't per se specifically mention particular actions regarding Amal al-Salih, so it kind of somewhat atlaq, so it's somewhat generalized regarding righteous deeds being done in these days of Dhul-Hijjah, the first 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. So the person tried to carry out whatever of good deeds that they're able. This would include regarding these good deeds that can be done, things that we will normally do, that a person try to be consistent and even add more effort in these days of Dhul-Hijjah. So of those things regarding al-bir al-walidain, so starting concerning of our relationship with our parents, that in these days that put some more emphasis regarding our consistency, regarding goodness towards our parents, try to avoid to be disobedient to our parents in these days of Dhul-Hijjah. So try to be as helpful as possible with our parents in these months of these days, and also try to avoid the opposite. Second of those actions regarding concerning, which is one concerning Qira'atul Quran. So regarding concerning the person having that relationship between themselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by reading the Quran as often as possible. So in these months of these days of Dhul-Hijjah, that a person try to read as much of the Quran as possible, and even the person can complete the Quran in these days, even plausible. So the person try to busy oneself regarding Qira'atul Quran. Also third, al-azkar, that a person try to busy themselves also regarding azkar, with tasbih, with istighfar and the likes. So these days the person try to make use of these forms of azkar during these days with tasbih, during these days of Dhul-Hijjah. Especially the person become more aware and try to fulfill them accordingly. So regarding after the salat, in the morning, in the evening, those type of azkar that a person try to stick to them to the best of his ability. Also forth regarding those things, regarding concerning that with the Quran, listen to the Quran. So the person will recite, also to listen to the Quran during these days of Dhul-Hijjah as often as possible. So these type of things are also siyam and to be discussed. So also of those things the person can do is to fast as many of these days that one is able to fast. And particular days will be specific, but in general that a person is allowed to fast as much these days, as many of these days as possible, without the person without being binding, or the person feel forced that he has to fast all these days. But the person fasts as much as he's able. So that's concerning of those things that a person can be involved in regarding concerning as-salawat, regarding concerning the voluntary salat, that a person try to be consistent regarding the voluntary salat that are performed before and after salat, and other non-voluntary salat, salatul duha, and the likes. So the person try to qiyamul layl, that a person also try to fulfill these as much as possible. So these are of those things the person is able performing umrah during these days, also something which is praiseworthy and something which is very praiseworthy to be done. So these are the things that a person can do regarding these days. And also in general regarding a tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of a tawbah, repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding our own shortcomings. And also regarding concerning that, also giving pardon to our brothers and sisters who may have wronged us. So the person who can find within themselves that they are afu towards those, as mentioned, khudil afu, that we should give of pardon to others. And so we try to make use of these things in these days of Dhul-Hijjah, because the reward have been heightened in this month of Dhul-Hijjah, and in particular these 10 days. So as concerning what they mentioned, then the author mentioned concerning that the next day regarding of those things to be mindful of, that those acts that are mashru', that are permissible in the month of Dhul-Hijjah, as mentioned hadith concerning al-udhiyah, which is the person performing al-udhiyah, which is the slaughtering or qurban or qurbani, as mentioned in the hadith of Salama, إذا رأيتم الهلال ذي-الحجة وأراد أحدكم أن يضحي فليمسك عن شعره وأظفاره حتى يضحي. So that's the hadith that is mentioned here regarding concerning this matter. So the hadith here that mentions that is in Sahih Muslim, that he mentioned regarding concerning that the person that he tries to, if he intends to fast or if he intends to perform a slaughter, then as udhiyah, then of those things, the person that he has to avoid certain things during these until his slaughter been carried out, until his slaughter have taken place, then he has to avoid certain things. So there are certain restrictions for a person who chooses to offer a sacrifice in Dhul-Hijjah. So they mention regarding of those things, the person to avoid cutting of his hair and also cutting of his nails, and that would include his toenails and fingernails, and also his hair, regarding the hair on his body in general, not to remove it. But concerning ordinary acts, concerning washing and combing of the person here, then those things are still allowed. But a person not that's concerning of those things that one should be mindful of, and the person that observe these rules until after his slaughter have been carried out, until his slaughter have taken place, then he has to observe these rules regarding of the person who intend to perform al-udhiyah. And between the ulama rahimahullah, that they have a khilaf regarding hukum al-udhiyah. So the khilaf between the ulama regarding al-udhiyah, like jamahir of the ulama take the position that the person performing al-udhiyah, it is mustahab or sunnah mu'akkada. So regarding al-udhiyah, it is sunnah mu'akkada. That's with the jamahir, majority of the ulama. But you find a group among the ulama who take the view that it is something which is wajib. So regarding of the ulama who take the position that al-udhiyah, offering the slaughter, it is the hukum that it is wajib. And amongst them the Ahnaf, and also of those who share this view, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. But to bear in mind that the word in that Ahnaf, al-wajib doesn't mean fard. So the Ahnaf in their usul, that they make a distinction regarding something being said to be wajib and something said to be fard. So that distinction with the Ahnaf, so that's concerning that particular matter. So Ahnaf consider so, but a person who's able, then he should. Then a person able, then he should try his best regarding offering a sacrifice as udhiyah. Aywa. So that's concerning that matter. Then he discuss page 21 or 20. Sorry.
No. قال المؤلف حفظه الله, the first of Dhul-Hijjah, the obligation of Hajj and hastening to perform it. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Islam is built on 5. The testimony that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, establishing the prayer, paying zakat, pilgrimage to the house, and fasting Ramadan. Reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim.
Aywa.
طيب.
So they mentioned regarding concerning something that I observe, Allahu Akbar, and I go back to the original copy, that regarding on page 17. On page 17 they mentioned the hadith of Salama, but they didn't mention regarding the source of the hadith. The reference, source of the hadith, which I think would be a normal, that you will mention like in the first hadith mentioned akhrajahu Bukhari wa Abu Dawud wa Tirmidhi wa Ibn Majah wa Ahmed. That's the first hadith. Then this one, there's no like reference made. Is that in the original text is like that, but in the footnotes they put in the Ibn translation there's no reference, but it's mentioned in the footnotes. It's mentioned in the footnotes, but not in the. We said that if it is something that's in the original, in the hadith, main hadith, it is not mentioned alongside with it.
No.
Now, so see if there's a pattern or there's something which. So in this hadith, the pattern that after he mentioned the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar radhiyallahu, that he mentioned akhrajahu Bukhari Muslim. Nam. So it is mentioned alongside. So the hadith that he, so this particular matter that is mentioned regarding of those acts that are within the month of Dhul-Hijjah is the person hastening to perform concerning Al-Hajj, which is one of the arkan of Islam. So Dhul-Hijjah, its significance is because of Al-Hajj is performed in this month. So Hajj, which is one of the arkan of Islam that is carried out in the month of Dhul-Hijjah. So Dhul-Hijjah, is of the pillars of Islam, and that it is of those things that is expected or wajib upon every Muslim once in a lifetime. So regarding Hajj, that it is wajib, a must upon every Muslim to perform at least once in a lifetime. That's concerning the hukum of Hajj. And also you have other criteria that have been laid down by the ulama regarding the one upon them to perform Hajj. So of those things regarding that Al-Hajj, that a person have the means. So of those things that make a person of those that becomes wajib upon them to perform Hajj immediately or hasten to perform Al-Hajj if the person have the means financially. By way of, is able can pay his way to go and to return and to maintain himself while he's there. I will not say that it have to be in an extravagant way, but a person within his limits. So the person have the ability or financially that is able to travel and perform Hajj and to return. So that's concerning of the things. So being able financially, also that their safety, the person able can take this journey without per se fear of his life and his property while in travel. Also regarding of those things that that a person also regarding that if travel and he has family dependents, that he have also enough finance that to maintain them, to support them in his absence. So they're not per se left without anything. That's concerning that matter, regarding this matter. Now Shaykh mentioned regarding a khilaf between the ulama regarding concerning Al-Hajj that he mentioned concerning Al-Fur regarding to be done immediately or as quick as possible. The person fulfill the criteria that he should hasten to perform Al-Hajj.
Oh no.
So that's concerning. So the Shaykh Hafidullah, he mentioned this as Hajj is carried out in the month of Dhul-Hijjah. So Hajj is carried out in the month of Dhul-Hijjah. Aywa. And that's the main significance of this month is related to Al-Hajj. Aywa. Then he goes to page 23.
قال مؤلف حفظه الله, the second of Dhul-Hijjah, the virtue of Hajj and what characteristics are benefiting for the one performing it to possess. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, whoever performs Hajj and does not commit any obscenity nor commit any evil will return from his sins like the day his mother gave birth to him. Reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. In another wording reported by Muslim, whoever comes to this house and does not commit any obscenity nor commit any evil will return just as his mother gave birth to him.
So the author Hafidullah Tabarak wa Ta'ala that mentioned regarding concerning of those things that relates to Al-Hajj, that the person who wish to perform Hajj, that they should be mindful of. And of those things for the person in doing certain acts, mindful regard or try to have the awareness of the reward for those that perform this act correctly. So I mentioned concerning this matter regarding Al-Hajj, that there is certain things the person should take into consideration and be very mindful of. And of those things regarding concerning that the reward performing of Hajj, but also how to perform Hajj correctly. So I mentioned regarding of those things that a person in trying to receive an Hajj, that is said with this reward, as if the day that he was birthed by his mom, that he mentioned, man Hajj walam yarfut walam yasfuk. That the person who perform Hajj in this manner, where the person try to avoid regarding man Hajj, that anyone, the one who performs Hajj and does not commit any obscenity, nor commit any evil. So the mention concerning al-yarfut regarding concerning matters, that it mentions concerning obscenity regarding matters that are unbefitting regarding speech or by way of behavior regarding thing which is thing that relates to intimacy and the likes. So the person try to avoid those type of conversation, discussing. So a thing which I've seen that is unbefitting, to avoid those type of things, وَلَمْ يُفْسِقْ, and also not involved regarding things which are sinful. So not trying to do acts that are said to be sinful while performing of Hajj, where the person performing Hajj require for the person to be very mindful that the environment and situation is different. The environment and the situation is different, where the person is performing Hajj with many millions of people, not just hundreds or thousands, that one is performing Hajj with millions others. So you might find a person that have to be somewhat very mindful regarding this, and that things will occur, but he has to kind of somewhat stay focused regarding that the ajr, the reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so not to lose focus, not to lose focus. So that's concerning the hadith that mentioned regarding concerning the reward concerning that, as if the person will return as if the day that his mother has given him birth. And the person generally know that he may have done those things, but also when he return, he will make some mention that of there's sign maybe to be indicators that the person performed Hajj correctly. So upon the person return after Hajj, that a person might see certain type of signs that's an indicator that his Hajj was one which was done correctly, without all of those actions, unbefitting actions. Aywa. So the author here mentioned regarding concerning lam yarfut, regarding concerning things of sexuality. So regarding concerning things of sexuality, regarding concerning that person speaking about woman described in a way which is sexual of uncertain about for the person somewhat to not to engage in such kind of discussion, nor to be a part of such discussion, or even today concerned that the fitna we have today is our phones. So the person may not be speaking, but his phone is watching and seeing things of this nature on the phone. Then also a person should be mindful of that. The person be mindful of those things, even by way of his phone. So things that I mentioned also, rafat, regarding things that are shameless or shameful, speech and the likes. Then we go to page 27 regarding the fourth virtue that he mentioned regarding
قال المؤلف حفظه الله, the third of Dhul-Hijjah, the virtue of the accepted Hajj and its descriptions. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated, I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, from one Umrah to the next is an expiation for whoever comes in between them, and an accepted Hajj has no reward except paradise. Reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim.
So again, the author, Hafidullah, he mentioned concerning that of those acts that are said to be mashru' and some wajib regarding concerning the month of Dhul-Hijjah is regarding those two acts, Al-Umrah and also Hajj. So these two acts, two acts of ibadah, that they are permissible, and one wajib in the month of Dhul-Hijjah. So regarding concerning the first being Al-Umrah, as in the hadith that he mentioned here regarding Al-Umrah ila Umrah, kaffara lima baynahuma, that Umrah from one Umrah to the next is a form of kaffara. So even the person, this kaffara, and that is any time that the person perform Al-Umrah. So whether it's in Ramadan, in Dhul-Hijjah, and in between those times, so, and kind of somewhat encouragement regarding performing Umrah as often as possible. So also the hadith regarding Al-Umrah ila Umrah, kaffara, an encouragement for the person to try to perform Umrah as often as possible. Because from one to another, so the person done one in Ramadan, then one in Dhul-Hijjah, especially the time which is, that time period also comes with certain excellence and virtue. So the time of Ramadan, in Ramadan, that performing Umrah, it comes with a certain virtue. Also Dhul-Hijjah, it comes with a certain type of virtue. So the person can somewhat try to maximize the benefit of those times. So performing Umrah as often as possible. So from one to another, say the person, for example, was to do it last Ramadan, then just 2 months approximately back, and then again in Dhul-Hijjah, then between both expiate those sins. Now, a discussion between ulama regarding concerning Al-Umrah ila Umrah, kaffara, is this kaffara expiation regarding all the sins, including major and minor, or it is specific to minor sins? So there are khilaf between the ulama that of those who hold that the hadith is regarding minor sin as al-kabahir major sin, required for the person to make tawbah, a specific tawbah for that sin. But as for umrah, that's ordinary sins will be removed, or minor sins will be removed by just performing al-umrah to another. So minor sins are removed. The discussion is regarding major sins. Then I mentioned the second of those things, al-hajj al-mabrur. ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. That al-hajj, which is also of those things that are performed in Dhul-Hijjah. So hajj is only set for Dhul-Hijjah. It cannot be done in Ramadan, cannot be done out in Shawwal. It is fixed for Dhul-Hijjah. So certain acts of ibadah, it has a time slot that it is fixed. Only can be performed or can be done during that time. So hajj is set only for Dhul-Hijjah and cannot be changed. So, as I mentioned, Akhraj al-Bukhari al-Muslim. So as concerning this hadith, it shows that, and the author can somewhat mention certain things that one should be mindful of. So regarding Umrah wal-Hajj, that are great acts of worship that come with great reward. I mentioned Al-Hajj al-Mabrur, the Hajj that is Mabrur, which is accepted Hajj, then ليس له جزاء, there is no reward except Al-Jannah. So that's the reward for Al-Hajj al-Mabrur, that the person is rewarded with Al-Jannah. So he mentioned in the footnotes, or the explanation he mentioned of those things, that by the title, the acceptable Hajj as description. I want to read from the first point, without the dalil.
The virtue of the accepted Hajj and its descriptions.
Aywa, accepted Hajj as descriptions.
And its descriptions, aywa.
Aywa, first, on the page 27.
The hadith is the evidence of the virtue of the accepted
La,
Hajj.
what's come
The first.
after then? The accepted Hajj as description.
Then the first one that you did.
From one Umrah to the next, you mean?
No.
Oh, sorry. First, the
Aywa.
wealth spent to perform it must be halal due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So of those things regarding themselves, so of the things because of time restriction, that of those things regarding concerning that the wealth, so the person also performing an Hajj or Umrah or any act of ibadah, that the Muslim try to use wealth which is halal. Now, a discussion between the ulama, if a person wants to perform Hajj, but the wealth is haram. He had money, for example, that's an example, that he had some money from riba. He had a lot of money, and that money that he had, that is money from riba, and he performed Hajj with it. Or some of the money that he used was from riba. Not to say yesterday, but of the money that he used was from riba, but there was some haram money involved. And he performed Hajj. They said that Hajj is acceptable, but he still have done something wrong. So the Hajj, the act itself is still acceptable, but of some shortcomings by way of the wealth being haram.
Does he have to do fidya?
Huh?
Will he have to do a fidya?
No, there's no fidya. Okay. There's no fidya. But the act itself that he from performing Umrah and Hajj, all the actions, for example, he did everything sound action properly. You understand? Everything is somewhat, is still acceptable, as performing Hajj, that is wajib, but he has done some shortcoming, which is the wealth is haram. But the Hajj still acceptable and counted, but other bits is that his preparation was from haram source. And mentioned, Inna Allaha tayyibun la yuqbal illa tayyib. That's concerning of the first point. He mentioned the second point. So I've said that's about all acts of ibadah. Person try to use wealth which is halal. Second.
I'll read the translation what you
Hey,
said.
let's go to the second.
Okay,
Just want a quick summary of
Second, sincerity in the actions for Allah, the Most High, and following the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So the second point mentioned sincere ikhlas. The person having ikhlas, that go back to the person intent, but the person not doing it kind of somewhat for fame and to show. And also that it mentioned regarding that, also regarding concerning that, ittiba' sunnah. So those two things are of the condition for qabul amal. So those are the two condition for qabul amal, which is al-ikhlas wa ittiba' sunnah, al-muwafaqa or sawab. So regarding for the person act to be accepted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the act have to fall in line with those two things, al-ikhlas, and second, al-ittiba' sunnah. So it shows regarding the person performing for Hajj and Umrah, that a person upon ittiba' sunnah, the person might have good intention, but ittiba' sunnah, that a person also have to be very mindful of this, that he's performing a Hajj and Umrah correctly by reading on the topic and studying the topic regarding Hajj and Umrah, so he can carry it out according to the Sunnah. And not just per se following, imitating others, and may fall into error. So, ittiba' as-sunnah requires ilm. Ittiba' as-sunnah requires a person having knowledge of what they're doing. That's the third. The third.
Third, keeping away from acts of disobedience, sins, innovations, and matters which contradict the Sunnah, and that he returns better than when he left.
Yes, that's our next thing that concerns now keeping of the characteristics of that type of Hajj Mabrur. That also concerns a person that while performing Hajj, and throughout his journey of Hajj, that he stay away from umur al-ma'asi, wal dhunub, wal bid'ah, and the like. So the person has somewhat tried to avoid regarding things that will those things that have disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also things that are said to be acts of bid'ah, wal khurafat. The person would avoid those type of things that was mentioned here contradict the Sunnah. So things that will contradict the Sunnah, the person should avoid those things. And also mention another sign regarding this type of Hajj and Mabrur, accepted Hajj. Also the person when he return, that he will see like a difference in himself in a better way. That he sees things that he seems to be a better person than when he left. That his situation of change, his circumstances have changed, meaning concerning him as a person and how he function, that he will see some changes, positive change in his life. Aywa.
Fourth, good manners, gentleness, and humility in his transportation and living arrangements, his interaction with others, and in every situation, just as the Prophet ﷺ was during his performance of Hajj. Ibn Abdul Bar said, the accepted Hajj is that which has no showing off or seeking fame, no obscenity or evil, and is done with halal wealth.
So that's concerning the summary of Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah regarding that particular matter in his book At-Tamheed. So regarding concerning summarizing those points that the Shaykh have articulated regarding concerning that for the person performing Hajj, that he can somewhat be mindful of these things regarding signs of a Hajj being acceptable, that these are the things that he has to be, that these are of the signs of a sign of acceptance. So regarding mention of word regarding the person's conduct and behavior, so the person also be mindful of his conduct and behavior. As I mentioned, that Hajj, millions of people. So it requires the person have to, to show gentleness. The person have to be somewhat, not to be lose of one, to be calm, not to lose one temper. So the person kind of somewhat to be level-headed, to think straight. So all these things are required from the person performing Hajj. Be good conduct. So kind, generous, helpful towards others. So all of these things the person to be mindful of. And the person doing these things, whatever he does of good towards others, not seeking a reward from them. So the person, and that's considered a general thing. If you do a good deed for someone, don't believe that you are deserving a form of compensation or some form of return back. You do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you receive, you receive. What you didn't receive, you didn't receive. But to be mindful of that, then we go to the next point that he mentioned will be the fifth point. Page will be page 31.
Now, Hafidhahullah, an encouragement to sacrifice and clarify its virtue, and clarifying its virtues. Anas radiallahu anhu narrated the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sacrificed 2 white and mostly white-horned rams, reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim.
Then author Hafidhullah then mentioned regarding that concern, that the encouragement regarding the person performing a sacrifice and clarifying the virtue. So regarding concern of those things, regarding concern of the Prophet ﷺ, that he himself performed sacrifice, kabshain, amlahain, akranain. So he can somewhat himself ﷺ, that he performed a sacrifice, as that's now setting an example. So as the Prophet ﷺ first setting an example regarding doing that type, carrying out that sacrifice of 2 animals that were sacrificed. So regarding the person can do more than 1 animals. So one individual can do more than 1 animals. 1 animal, as Islam did, mentioned here, 2 animals was slaughtered on his, And as we discussed before regarding the ulama, have a discussion regarding the hukum regarding al-udhiyah. Is it wajib or mustahab? Nam, is it wajib or mustahab? As we had stated, that of those, it is wajib, and also the majority hold it is something which is mustahab to be done. So that's concerning. So the general thing, the person who's able, then he should not neglect this. The one who's able should not ignore this duty. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, so establish, we go to the 6th point, which would be page 34.
قال المؤلف حفظه الله, the 5th of Dhul-Hijjah, mentioning some of the rulings of the sacrifice. Jabir radiallahu anhu narrated that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, do not slaughter except a masina, unless it is difficult for you, in which case slaughter a jadha'a from sheep, reported by Muslim.
And then author mentioned regarding concerning Hafidullah, mentioned regarding concerning of those things that he just previously mentioned regarding al-udhiyah, that the things that are allowed to be sacrificed. Then now can someone to give some to mention what are the type of animals and the criteria for those animals, what are the criteria for the animals that are to be sacrificed, and a ruling that revolves around the sacrificial animals. So I mentioned regarding concerning that la tudba illa musin. So the person should slaughter the animal, certain type of a certain type, and this particular hadith it mentioned regarding certain type. So the animals that are allowed to be sacrificed at udhiyah, they mentioned ba'imatul an'am, which would be, they said ba'imatul an'am, like it will include concerning 1 camel, 2nd cows, 3rd sheep, 4th goats. Those are the animals to be sacrificed. So a question that was asked by one regarding concerning, they mentioned jamus. Jamus is like buffaloes, ox, those type of animals. They are counted like cows. They're in a group of like cows. So some mention that they are allowed to be slaughtered. So that's concerning. That's in brief. So those are the ones that can be slaughtered. So the best, which would be the camel because of his value. Also cows wouldn't be in line, and then the smaller animals are the ones to be slaughtered. Aywa.
People talk about llama. Llama is like an animal, it's like sheep, or it's a bit long.
Allahu alam, but llama.
They say it's
amongst the class as sheep.
Sheep.
Maybe that's maybe the case. As I said, as some animals, that may be the case. But they're more expensive.
Yeah.
And much bigger in size. Ala kulli hal, regarding that, that so you find that the primary ones are the more regular ones, and those ones that are mentioned by way of hadith, that most of the animals are one that was generally known to the Arabs during that time. Regarding those animals more, the local animals, that camel, goats, sheep, and also cows, but these are animals that are allowed to be offered in sacrifice. Then I mentioned on the next page, which is 35.
Shall I mention?
Once
he mentioned some good points about marking the sacrifice.
that's the one. That's the part. Yeah, read those ones.
Okay. Once he marks it as a sacrifice, the following rulings result.
So the person will mark the animal. So either mark the animal that the person can put, like you said, use like brand the animals, the bigger animals on their bum. So you can where can break the skin, where it even bleed, but as a marker, so a type of mark that will be there, because like branding the animal, that this answer, so it is known that is meant for sacrifice. Or the smaller ones, you like tie things on them. So you can, as a marker that these animals are intended for sacrifice. So that's the mark that they'll be. So it said the taqlid. So those like marking them somewhat. Aywa.
1. It is not permissible to sell it, gift it, or exchange it except with what is better than it. If the person who specified it dies, it is slaughtered on his behalf, and the inheritors take his place in eating it and giving it in charity as a gift.
So the animal is not permissible to be sold or to sell it. So these things are not to be sold. Nam, so they're specific meant for a particular purpose. So they're not to be sold if they have been marked and earmarked for that particular act. Also, to make exchange unless there's a valid reason. Nam, so I mentioned gift it or exchange it except for what is better. Nam, so to exchange for something which is worse, then no, or less. So something better, yes, but nothing less. So that's concerning those basic things. So when it's been marked for this, then it should stick to, should be used for its purpose intended without these changes.
Do you think it would be, is it permissible to exchange it for something in terms of number? For example, I have a camel. It's healthy, but I want to slaughter more. So I say, take my camel and give me 5 sheep.
It's possible. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's instead of better.
So the better
alternative instead of the person. So it all depends. A person might have a camel or a cow, which is a big animal, but you want to exchange it for 3 sheep. But that's the cow meat would be, you understand, regarding concerning the value still and the amount of meat is still more with 1 cow compared to
3 sheep.
So all those things said. So it could be done, but is what is better. So that which is better.
Number 2, it does not suffice if a fault arises in it, such as a clear limp, and if that is due to the owner's negligence, then he must replace it with a healthier one. If that is not from the owner's negligence, then he slaughters it and it is suffice.
So that's concerning sense. So regarding concerning animal that not of certain type of faults, but if the animal that either the fault came after it was earmarked for sacrifice, it was on its journey, it somewhat, it hurt one of his leg or one of his ears. Something must not severe. Then it still continues, it still be used, but if there's a neglect from the owner, then he may have to replace it. There's a neglect that the owner wasn't caring for the animal, he wasn't feeding them properly, and they start to become very meager and start to become ill, then that was his neglect. So it needs to be replaced.
3, if the animal is lost or stolen and that is due to the negligence of the owner, then he must replace it. But if it was not due to his negligence, then there's nothing obligated on him. If he finds it, he slaughters it, even if the time for slaughtering has passed, and he deals with it as if he is slaughtered it during the days of sacrifice.
So I mentioned a third point regarding concerning that, I don't have the Arabic text, but I have the book, but didn't bring it. Regarding concerning the third point, that if it is lost or stolen. So regarding concern that it goes back to, if it is lost, if it's something where the owner was negligent. Didn't put them in a safe area. Or tied them, you understand? So he didn't per se, secure them properly, then the fault is his. And they're to be returned, to be replaced by him. So you have to take the burden and replace them. But it's something that it kind of somewhat occur. It was out of, not of his fault. Not of his fault. Then they got lost. One got lost, not of his fault. Then it doesn't have to be, there's nothing upon him. There's it doesn't have to replace it, nor he doesn't have to do any form of compensation. Because so that's concerning that matter. But it was mentioned, and they mentioned the next point, if the animal was lost, and then later on it was found, but it was after days that Hajj have now finished, the days of slaughter now ended, it still can be slaughtered, because it was originally earmarked for sacrifice. So it's still to continue under the purpose that it was intended for. Aywa.
4, it is not permissible to sell anything from it, nor give the butcher anything from it in exchange for his fee.
So next matter to discuss regarding the sacrificial animals, that regarding concerning that one, you have tawqil. You can appoint someone to slaughter on your behalf. So the Prophet ﷺ, that he had 100 animals. That he slaughtered 63 with his own hands. And the remaining, 37, that was done by Ali. So Ali was the one who was coordinating his animals, but the Prophet ﷺ, so you have over 100 animals. He slaughtered 63, and then Ali slaughtered the remaining ones, But and then so it shows regarding concerning that, mentioned that. So of the thing concerned that he mentioned that the person, if you may have, so it showed that he allowed Ali to slaughter some of those animals on his behalf. Now, the remaining animals, then it shows that you can have someone to slaughter on your behalf. Whether you're able or not able, but you can have someone to slaughter on your behalf. And also with this, that they mentioned regarding concerning fee, the butcher, the one performed the slaughter on your behalf. For example, you have agreed to a person, whoever he is, that he cannot slaughter for you. Now, if he says, okay, I'll do it on your behalf, but there's a service charge as the butcher. So you're paying him the fee for
The meat and his work.
no, not for the meat, for the service, for slaughtering,
Okay.
and to maybe distribute. So you're slaughtering because you can't do it for yourself.
No, but you said he's a butcher, so he might provide the meat, so you might buy the sheep from him because he's a butcher.
Now, so I said, in this case, regarding concerning a person want to slaughter X amount of animals, I ask Fulan B, min al-Zayd min al-Nas, can you slaughter these 10 animals for me? He said yes. But his thing is that because his thing is that, but there's a fee for me to carry out this service. So I'll slaughter them, but there's a service charge. So you're paying him for that fee because you have to take out his time and to do that. So that service, you're paying him for that service. And you got, for example, it's £100. That's for the service of doing all of that. But as for the animal that he slaughtered, you cannot per se say, okay, slaughter these 10 animals, and I'll give you one of them as a compensation for your service, as your service charge. Then no. So you have to pay. So it has to be a separate. You cannot compensate him by giving him a portion of the animal as for his
Fee.
as a fee.
If you have intention of sacrificing 10 animals, then if he does the 10 animals, but you give him another one.
Separate
Yeah,
from those
separately
ones.
from
Yeah.
those
That's what
10.
so that would be the fee, separate.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be from the one, you say it wouldn't be from those ones, it would be something separate. For example, so I said, because rather than said, okay, I'm going to give you £100. I said, okay, I'll give you a sheep, I'll give you this, I'll give you a pair of shoe. You understand? So that will be is the fee for that service. But as for the animals that was intended for udhiyah, then those meat when it is slaughtered, he would not be giving a portion as compensation for its service. So they mentioned regarding concern that, so with this also that's concerned, so you can hire a butcher, but you have to pay him separate.
Okay.
Not from the animals that he actually slaughtered.
What do you mean?
Second, that Ibn Uthaymeen and Ulama mentioned that, okay, if, for example, he slaughtered those 10 animals, and your intention for it to be also to be distributed and be given away. But he's also of those people, you see him as a miskin. He's a miskin, which you're trying to help him, say, okay, do this for me, and I'll pay you separate. But from the meat of the 10 animals, you said, okay, I'm going to give you a portion as the general sadaqah that you're going to give to different people, give to, that you will not ordinarily distribute. So you become one of the fuqara that you're given, not because of that, so because of the general sadaqah.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
not as a compensation for the service.
Hey,
Clear?
clear. Well done.
Yep.
Tayyib.
Question. So, like, you give person a portion of the meat, yeah? You've paid them, for example. Is it allowed for the person to sell the meat?
Yeah, that's with them.
Okay.
They discuss concerning the person or the owner cannot that meat should not be sold. So should not be sold. Just mentioned shouldn't be sold, but intended regarding concern that the person who's the one offering the sacrifice, he cannot sell those meat to people. So I sacrifice my udhiyah, 3 of them, but I'm going to sell back 2. Then no, and keep 1. Then no. Nam.
No.
Aywa. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll move on to point the 6th. The 6th day. Okay, will be the 7th point.
You want to go?
What time is it? Or
It's an hour. An hour's done.
or do the remaining? Because we've done about half.
Yeah.
Or do the next day. Tomorrow instead
We
and
can do-
complete.
Yeah, we can do it tomorrow and complete it.
Hey, so inshallah ta'ala, then we'll stop there inshallah ta'ala regarding concerning just a brief review or study of the book Ahadith Ashra Dhul-Hijjah wa Ayyam Al-Tashriq Ahkam wal-Adab by Shaykh Abdullah Fawzan Hafidullah Tabarak Ta'ala. And this book is translated by some of the brothers, as we mentioned, and that they're to masajid, that they're distributed freely. So there's no charge regarding these books, that they are free distribution. If you contact the brothers who have worked on the book, then they'll able to can organize the masajid and organize an Islamic organization receiving copies. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq.